They say the corporate ladder is a climb, but sometimes it's a battlefield, and the most dangerous enemies aren't in the boardroom, but in the cubicle next to you. This isn't just a story about professional betrayal. It's about the chilling truth of ambition unchecked and how the very person you trust can become the architect of your downfall. What you're about to hear is a masterclass in quiet destruction, and by the end, you'll understand why some promotions come at a price far greater than you can imagine. My name is David Miller. For 15 years, I've poured my life into architecture, shaping skylines, transforming dreams into concrete realities. I started at Sterling & Associates as a junior designer, fueled by a passion for innovative structures and a relentless pursuit of perfection. I climbed the ranks steadily, project by project, earning a reputation for meticulous detail and unwavering dedication. My work was my identity, my designs a reflection of my soul, and alongside me for the past 5 years was Sarah Jenkins, my long-term girlfriend, my colleague, my partner in both life and design. She was brilliant, ambitious, and together we were a formidable team, a power couple in the competitive world of high-rise architecture. We shared a desk, a vision, and a future. I was the man who had it all, the rising star, the one who always had the blueprint for success, until the day the blueprint began to crumble, not from external forces, but from a silent, insidious hand within. It started subtly, like a hairline crack in a meticulously designed facade. Minor glitches in project timelines, unexplained delays in receiving crucial information, files that seemed to mysteriously vanish from shared drives only to reappear days later, slightly altered. I'd attribute it to system errors, overworked servers, the general chaos of a busy firm. But then the errors became more frequent, more impactful. A critical dimension would be off by a millimeter in a final rendering, causing a costly delay in fabrication. A crucial email confirming a client's preference would somehow be misfiled, leading to a miscommunication. I'd find myself working late, correcting what seemed like a string of unfortunate coincidences, always feeling a step behind. Rumors, too, began to circulate, whispers about my attention to detail slipping, about me being overwhelmed. They were vague, insidious, impossible to trace back to a source. My performance reviews, once glowing, began to include subtle notes about consistency and organizational challenges. I'd questioned Sarah, who worked on many of the same projects, if she'd noticed anything. She'd offer plausible explanations. Tight deadlines, new software glitches, everyone's feeling the pressure. Her answers were always smooth, confident, delivered with a reassuring squeeze of my hand. I trusted her implicitly. Why wouldn't I? She was my girlfriend, my partner, my closest confidante. But the nagging feeling persisted, a tiny, persistent itch I couldn't quite scratch. It was like a faint, off-key note in a perfectly orchestrated symphony. Individually, each discrepancy was minor. Collectively, they began to form a dissonant chord, a subtle warning that something was fundamentally wrong with the harmony of my career. My mind, trained to identify and solve complex structural problems, began to flag these inconsistencies, but my heart, deeply invested in my relationship with Sarah, resisted the implications. To suspect her, the woman I loved, the colleague I collaborated with daily, felt like a betrayal of my own values. I'd spend late nights poring over project logs, cross-referencing email timestamps, trying to find a logical explanation that didn't involve malice. Was I becoming paranoid? Was the pressure of the upcoming senior architect promotion finally getting to me? The self-doubt was a heavy cloak, weighing down my judgment. I prided myself on my rationality, my ability to separate emotion from professional decisions. Yet here I was, caught in a swirling vortex of suspicion and denial. I tried to talk to Sarah, to express my concerns about the recent project setbacks, hoping she would shed light on the issues. She'd listen patiently, her brow furrowed, offering suggestions for process improvements or new time management strategies, always deflecting any direct inquiry about the specific errors. Her evasiveness, subtle as it was, only deepened the unease. I wanted to believe her, to dismiss my fears as unfounded. But the patterns, cold and impartial, told a different story. They whispered of a deliberate hand, a steady undermining of my work, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the source was closer than I dared to imagine. The promotion, once a certainty, now felt like it was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't understand why. And then there was Mr. Harrison, Robert Harrison, a senior partner at Sterling and Associates, a legend in the industry, known for his visionary designs and his demanding, almost intimidating presence. He was the gatekeeper to the highest echelons of the firm, the man whose approval could make or break a career. Sarah had always been ambitious, a trait I admired, but recently, her ambition seemed to have taken on a new, almost obsessive quality, particularly when it came to impressing Mr. Harrison. She'd stay late, ostensibly to review plans with him, her laughter echoing a little too brightly from his office. She'd volunteer for projects that put her directly in his orbit, even if they were outside her usual scope. I dismissed it as healthy career drive, a desire to prove herself to the best. I even encouraged it, proud of her dedication. He was a mentor, I thought, guiding her, pushing her to excel. I never imagined, not for a second, that this mentorship was anything more than professional. The bitter truth, the one that would later curdle my stomach, was that he was not just a mentor. He was a co-conspirator, a silent partner in the systematic dismantling of my career, all for the sake of her advancement. He was part of the very fabric of my professional life, a fabric she was actively unraveling behind my back with his complicity. The breaking point came with the announcement of the senior architect promotion. It was a position I had been groomed for, a natural progression in my career. My name had been at the top of the list for months. But when the official memo landed in my inbox, my name wasn't on it. Instead, the promotion went to a less experienced colleague, someone who had only recently joined the firm. The reason given was vague: a need for fresh perspectives, a different leadership style. It was a blatant slap in the face, a public demotion without cause. My rational mind, finally unshackled from emotional bias, took over. This wasn't just a series of unfortunate coincidences. This was a deliberate pattern, a targeted attack. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I began to meticulously document everything, every project timeline, every email exchange, every version control log. I cross-referenced my own files with the firm's central server, looking for discrepancies, for anomalies, for any digital footprint that would reveal the truth. It felt dirty, invasive, a violation of the trust I still desperately wanted to believe in. But the need for truth, for concrete proof, outweighed my discomfort. I needed to know, I needed to see, not just for my sanity, but for the very foundation of my career, my reputation, my professional identity. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach. I was about to confirm my worst fears, or perhaps, just perhaps, finally understand the true nature of the enemy within. I was no longer just an architect. I was a detective, and the stakes were everything. The first few days of my covert investigation yielded nothing but frustration. Then, late one night, as I was cross-referencing a project timeline for the new City Hall complex, I found it. A subtle alteration in the digital timestamp of a critical design file. It showed that the file had been accessed and modified, not by me, but by Sarah, hours after I had finalized it. The modification was minor, a single line of code that would cause a subtle, almost imperceptible structural flaw, easily missed in a cursory review, but potentially catastrophic in the long run. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was real. The cracks weren't hairline anymore. They were gaping fissures, tearing through the carefully constructed facade of my professional life. The betrayal was a physical blow, leaving me gasping for air in my own office. I watched, numb, as I found more. Deleted emails from my inbox, rerouted to her own. False rumors subtly planted in casual conversations, then amplified by her. A pattern of deliberate, calculated sabotage designed to undermine my competence, to make me look careless, incompetent. The screen flickered and I saw a glimpse of her name on the audit log, a chilling confirmation of her treachery. Not a mistake, not an oversight, a deliberate act. The disbelief was overwhelming, followed by a cold, searing rage. This wasn't just professional rivalry. This was a systematic, calculated destruction of my career, orchestrated by the woman I loved, the woman who shared my life, my dreams, my very profession. And the scale of it, the sheer audacity, was staggering. She wasn't just a colleague, she was a saboteur, and I was her unwitting victim. As I delved deeper into the digital breadcrumbs, a strange, unsettling detail caught my eye. Several of the altered files, the ones with the subtle flaws, were also linked to a specific, high-profile client, the Sterling Group, a major real estate development conglomerate. And then I saw it in an archived email from Sarah to Mr. Harrison, a casual mention of our mutual friend at Sterling. A fleeting thought, a whisper of unease, suggested that this professional betrayal wasn't just about career advancement or an affair. There were subtle mentions of future collaborations and exclusive partnerships in their exchanges, all linked to this client. It looked like Sarah wasn't just undermining my projects. She was leveraging my work, my designs, to gain favor with Mr. Harrison, and through him perhaps with the Sterling Group. The sabotage, the affair, they felt like bait. Bait for a larger, more complex scheme. The betrayal was a dagger, but these digital breadcrumbs, these brief, unsettling glimpses into a world beyond simple professional misconduct, felt like a poison, slowly seeping into the very core of my being. It hinted at a deeper, more insidious betrayal, a connection I couldn't yet grasp, but one that promised to unravel far more than just my career. This wasn't just about a lost promotion, it was about a broken trust on a much grander, more manipulative, and potentially criminal scale, and I had only just scratched the surface. The revelation hit me like a wrecking ball, demolishing the carefully constructed edifice of my professional and personal life. The audit logs, the altered files, the insidious rumors, they painted a picture of betrayal far more intricate and devastating than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't just a lost promotion, it was a shattered trust, a professional reputation systematically undermined. The initial shock gave way to a profound numbness, a protective layer that shielded me from the full, searing pain of Sarah's duplicity. I continued to attend meetings, to collaborate on projects, to interact with her as if nothing had changed, all while a silent war raged within me. Every casual glance, every shared laugh, every professional interaction with Sarah felt like a fresh insult, a cruel reminder of her calculated deception. The worst part was the silence. The silence of her deceit, so loud it deafened me to everything else. And the silence of my own pain, which I couldn't share with anyone, not yet. I wanted to rage, to confront her, to demand answers. But the architect in me, the one who always calculated the structural integrity, knew that an emotional outburst would only serve to complicate matters, to give her an advantage, to allow her to twist the narrative. No, this required precision, a surgical approach to dismantling her carefully constructed web of lies. My pain began to morph into a cold, calculated resolve. This wasn't about a momentary outburst. It was about justice, about reclaiming my career, and about exposing the truth. My meticulous nature, honed over years of architectural design, became my greatest weapon. I began to document everything. Every project timeline, every email exchange, every version control log, every internal communication. I cross-referenced my own files with the firm's central server, looking for discrepancies, for anomalies, for any digital footprint that would reveal the truth. I set up alerts for any modifications to my files, any unusual access patterns. I started keeping a detailed journal, noting every suspicious interaction, every vague rumor, every subtle slight. It was a morbid education, a masterclass in professional sabotage, and I was its unwilling student. Each new piece of evidence, each confirmation of her systematic undermining, chipped away at the last vestiges of my affection for Sarah, replacing it with a steely determination. I wasn't just a wronged boyfriend. I was a victim of a calculated, prolonged professional assault, and she and her accomplice would pay dearly. My goal wasn't just to expose her. It was to dismantle her entire operation, to ensure she could never again use her ambition to destroy another's career. The digital dossier grew exponentially, a damning chronicle of her manipulative tactics. We uncovered dozens of instances, deleted sections from my project proposals, subtly altered specifications that would cause delays, and even fabricated email chains designed to make it appear as though I had missed deadlines or ignored critical feedback. There were instances where she had deliberately misdirected information, sending crucial client requests to my spam folder or burying important updates in obscure shared drives. We found evidence of her spreading false rumors about my competence, subtly questioning my judgment in team meetings, and even fabricating stories about my personal life to undermine my professional standing. The sheer scale of her deception was staggering. She had a different tactic for each situation, tailoring her sabotage to the specific vulnerabilities of each project. weaving a web of lies that was both intricate and sickeningly familiar. There was one particularly galling discovery, a series of internal messages where she explicitly discussed how to manage my projects to ensure they fell behind schedule, or how to spin a minor error into a major oversight. It was a punch to the gut, a reminder that her professional advancement, her perceived brilliance, was built on the systematic destruction of my work. The casual cruelty of her actions, the utter disregard for my career, fueled my resolve. This wasn't just professional rivalry. It was a systematic, calculated destruction, a predatory pattern of behavior that needed to be stopped. She wasn't just a colleague, she was a saboteur, and I was gathering the evidence to expose her. The professional drain began to manifest in tangible ways. Projects I had poured my heart into were now viewed with suspicion. My ideas, once embraced, were now met with skepticism. The promotion, which had been a certainty, slipped through my fingers, and the explanation was vague, almost insulting. I found myself constantly defending my work, my decisions, my very competence. The stress was immense, a constant pressure that threatened to crack my composure. I spent sleepless nights, haunted by the thought of what else she might be doing, what other subtle acts of sabotage were undermining my efforts. My focus at work suffered, my creativity stifled by the constant need to be vigilant, to check and recheck every detail. I couldn't confide in my colleagues, fearing that any hint of internal conflict would be used against me. So I suffered in silence, a prisoner in my own professional labyrinth, haunted by the specter of ruin. The vibrant, confident architect I once was began to fade, replaced by a hollowed-out version, consumed by a silent battle for survival. The firm, once my second home, now felt like a hostile environment, every interaction a potential trap. But within that hollowness, a new strength began to forge itself, a cold, hard resilience. I was no longer just a victim. I was a strategist, a silent warrior preparing for a battle that would determine not just my professional future, but my very identity. The initial desire for a private confrontation, for a tearful argument, had long since faded. It was replaced by something far more potent, a hunger for absolute justice. What would an emotional outburst achieve? A momentary satisfaction, perhaps, but it wouldn't recover my lost promotion, nor would it dismantle her carefully constructed web of professional deceit. No, her punishment had to fit the crime. It had to be public, undeniable, and utterly devastating to her carefully cultivated image. I wanted her to feel the same professional humiliation, the same public exposure, the same profound loss that she had inflicted upon me. My retribution wouldn't be impulsive. It would be a masterpiece of calculated legal and ethical precision. I envisioned the ethics committee hearing, the firm's leadership, the cold, hard facts laid bare. The thought of Sarah's face, contorted in shock and shame, became my driving force. It wasn't about anger anymore. It was about surgical precision. Every altered file, every deleted email, every fabricated rumor would be woven into a narrative of her undoing. I would not just expose her professional misconduct. I would expose her true character, her utter lack of ethics, her profound betrayal. This wasn't just about me. It was about setting a precedent, a warning to anyone who dared to play with another's career, especially when that career was built on trust and integrity. The best revenge, they say, is living well. But sometimes the best revenge is also ensuring that those who wronged you can no longer live well, at least not in the professional world they so desperately craved. I started to subtly test Sarah to see if she would crack under the slightest professional pressure. One afternoon, I accidentally left a printout of a detailed project timeline on my desk with a deliberately placed minor discrepancy. I watched from the corner of my eye as she paused, her eyes scanning the document before quickly moving on, feigning disinterest. Her hurried movements, her forced casualness were neon signs flashing her guilt. Another time, I casually mentioned in a team meeting that I was implementing a new, more rigorous version control system for all project files, citing recent inexplicable errors. Sarah's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, her gaze darting to Mr. Harrison. They exchanged a quick, almost imperceptible glance. It was enough. These small tests confirmed what the digital dossier already showed. She was deeply entrenched in her deception, and she was terrified of being caught. Her fear, her paranoia, became a perverse source of strength for me. I was in control. She just didn't know it yet. Each test, each confirmation solidified my plan, adding another layer of ice to my resolve. She was walking into a trap, and I was the one setting it, blueprint by agonizing blueprint. As I continued to meticulously document Sarah's sabotage, a strange, unsettling pattern emerged beyond just her career ambition. Several of the projects she had deliberately undermined, particularly those involving the Sterling Group, were also experiencing unusual delays and cost overruns, even after I had corrected her sabotage. And then I found it. A series of encrypted communications between Sarah, Mr. Harrison, and an external IP address, an address linked to a rival architectural firm, Nexus Designs. A fleeting thought, a whisper of unease, suggested that this professional betrayal wasn't just about career advancement or an affair. There were subtle mentions of proprietary information and competitive advantage in their exchanges, all linked to the Sterling Group projects. It looked like Sarah wasn't just undermining my projects. She was leveraging my work, my designs, to gain favor with Mr. Harrison, and through him, perhaps, to funnel sensitive information to a rival firm. The sabotage, the affair, they felt like bait for a larger, more complex scheme of corporate espionage. The betrayal was a dagger, but these digital breadcrumbs, these brief, unsettling glimpses into a world beyond simple professional misconduct, felt like a poison, slowly seeping into the very core of my being. It hinted at a deeper, more insidious betrayal, a connection I couldn't yet grasp, but one that promised to unravel far more than just my career. This wasn't just about a lost promotion. It was about a broken trust on a much grander, more manipulative, and potentially criminal scale, and I had only just scratched the surface. The decision to present my findings to the firm's ethics committee was not one of triumph, but of grim necessity. It was a crucible of fear, anger, and a profound sense of professional responsibility. I knew the risks, the inevitable backlash, the accusations of being a disgruntled employee, the potential damage to my own career if my evidence wasn't irrefutable. But the alternative, allowing Sarah to continue her predatory behavior, to undermine more colleagues, to use her ambition to destroy others, was unthinkable. The meticulously documented evidence, the cross-referenced timelines, the altered files, the encrypted communications, they were my armor, my shield, and my sword. My legal counsel, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney specializing in corporate ethics, reviewed every piece of data, confirming its veracity and its damning implications. We strategized, planning every presentation slide, every verbal statement, every potential counter-argument. This wasn't going to be a messy, emotional rant. This was going to be a surgical strike, a public dismantling of a professional predator, delivered with the precision of a seasoned architect presenting a complex design. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach, but it was overshadowed by a burning conviction. This was bigger than me. This was about justice, about protecting the integrity of the firm, about reclaiming my reputation. The ethics committee room, usually a place for mundane policy discussions, was about to become a courtroom, and the curtain was about to rise on Sarah's final act. The ethics committee hearing was a sterile, unforgiving arena, a stark contrast to the collaborative design studios we usually inhabited. Every detail of Sarah's sabotage, every altered file, every whispered rumor, was laid bare under the harsh fluorescent lights. I sat beside my attorney, a silent observer, my composure unwavering. Sarah, on the other hand, was a picture of unraveling composure. Her carefully constructed facade began to crack under the relentless onslaught of facts. My attorney, with surgical precision, presented the evidence. Project timelines flashed across the large screens, highlighting the deliberate delays. Email exchanges, meticulously cross-referenced, revealed her subtle misdirection of information. Audio recordings, from anonymous tips, played snippets of her spreading false rumors about my competence. The committee members, a panel of senior partners and HR representatives, listened intently, their expressions unreadable. Sarah's attorney tried to discredit the evidence, to paint me as a vengeful ex-boyfriend, but their arguments withered under the weight of the irrefutable data. I watched Sarah's face, once so expressive, now a mask of dawning horror. Her eyes darted between the screens, the committee and me, a flicker of desperation replacing her earlier indignation. Mr. Harrison, called as a witness, stammered, and contradicted himself, his influential presence crumbling under the harsh glare of scrutiny. He looked like a deer caught in headlights, his carefully cultivated mystique evaporating with each nervous glance at Sarah. The air was thick with the truth, undeniable and suffocating. This wasn't just a hearing, it was a public dissection of their deceit, a brutal reckoning for their professional misconduct and personal betrayal. The committee's verdict was swift and decisive, citing overwhelming evidence of professional misconduct, unethical behavior, and a clear conflict of interest. Sarah was terminated from Sterling and Associates, effective immediately. The news spread like wildfire through the firm. The whispers, once confined to hushed tones, now erupted into open discussions. Her carefully curated image as a rising star, a brilliant architect, shattered into a million pieces. The professional circles she had so meticulously cultivated turned their backs. Collaborations ceased. Industry invitations stopped coming. The social media platforms she had used to build her professional brand became a cesspool of condemnation, filled with accusations and revelations from former colleagues and even some of her own clients who had suspected foul play. Her attempts at damage control, her denials, her pathetic attempts to paint herself as a victim were met with a relentless barrage of truth. She became a cautionary tale, a symbol of ambition gone wrong, a stark reminder that integrity, in the end, always prevails. Mr. Harrison, too, faced severe repercussions. While not terminated, he was stripped of his senior partner status, demoted to a non-client-facing role, and placed under strict internal review. His reputation, once unblemished, was now irrevocably tarnished. The public humiliation was absolute, a fitting consequence for their calculated greed and betrayal. They had sought to ruin my career. Instead, they had ruined themselves professionally, socially, and personally. Mr. Harrison's role in this sordid affair was more complex, more insidious than a simple romantic entanglement. He wasn't just her lover. He was her enabler, her accomplice in the professional sabotage. His silence, his complicity, his willingness to turn a blind eye to Sarah's unethical behavior all stemmed from his own self-serving ambition. He had seen in Sarah a ruthless drive that mirrored his own, a willingness to do whatever it took to get ahead. He had cultivated her, nurtured her darker impulses, believing he could control her, use her to further his own agenda within the firm. But in the end, her downfall became his. The ethics committee, while not directly implicating him in the sabotage, found him guilty of gross professional negligence and a severe breach of ethical conduct. His demotion was a public shaming, a clear message that even those at the top were not immune to accountability. His once lofty office, with its panoramic views of the city, was replaced by a cramped, windowless cubicle. His name, once synonymous with visionary architecture, was now whispered in hushed tones associated with scandal and disgrace. The power he once wielded, the influence he commanded, evaporated overnight. He became a ghost in the hallways, a cautionary tale for aspiring partners. The poetic justice of it was not lost on me. He had gained nothing but a ruined reputation, and in his complicity, he sealed his own professional demise. Amidst the wreckage of their careers, my own began to soar. The ethics committee, having thoroughly reviewed all the evidence, not only cleared my name, but issued a formal apology for the professional setbacks I had endured. The firm's CEO, a man of integrity and foresight, personally offered me the senior architect promotion, the very position that had been dangled and then snatched away. But it wasn't just the promotion. I was also given the lead on Sarah's most prestigious project, the new Sterling Group skyscraper, a multi-billion-dollar endeavor that would redefine the city's skyline. It was a clear vote of confidence, a public affirmation of my talent and my integrity. The support I received from my colleagues was overwhelming. They had seen through Sarah's machinations, had witnessed my quiet struggle, and now they rallied around me, offering their expertise, their encouragement, their unwavering loyalty. The firm, which had been shaken by the scandal, began to heal, to rebuild its own reputation on a foundation of renewed trust and ethical conduct. I held a company-wide meeting, not to gloat, but to reaffirm our commitment to transparency, to collaboration, to a culture where talent and integrity were truly valued. The vindication was profound, a testament to the power of truth. I wasn't just rebuilding my career, I was rebuilding the very fabric of my professional life. stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. The career sabotage they had intended for me had, ironically, become the catalyst for my greatest professional triumph. As I immersed myself in the Sterling Group project, meticulously reviewing every detail, every blueprint, every communication log, a strange, unsettling pattern emerged. Several of the design specifications, particularly those related to the building's core infrastructure, seemed unusually complex, almost deliberately convoluted. And then I found it, a series of subtle, almost imperceptible alterations in the structural integrity calculations, alterations that, if implemented, would compromise the building's long-term stability, making it prone to significant, costly failures years down the line. These alterations were not Sarah's doing. They predated her involvement with the project. They were embedded deep within the initial design phases, signed off by a different senior architect, a name I recognized from the firm's history, Arthur Vance, a man who had retired abruptly years ago under mysterious circumstances. A fleeting thought, a whisper of unease, suggested that Sarah's sabotage and even Mr. Harrison's complicity were merely symptoms of a much larger, more deeply rooted problem within Sterling and Associates. The affair, the career sabotage, they felt like a distraction, a brilliant, cruel smokescreen. While I was consumed by their personal and professional betrayal, a far more insidious plot was lurking beneath the surface, a plot to compromise the very integrity of the firm's most prestigious projects for long-term financial gain. The betrayal was a dagger, but these structural anomalies, these brief, unsettling glimpses into a world beyond simple professional misconduct, felt like a poison, slowly seeping into the very core of the firm's foundation. It hinted at a deeper, more insidious betrayal, a connection I couldn't yet grasp, but one that promised to unravel far more than just my career. This wasn't just about a lost promotion. It was about a broken trust on a much grander, more manipulative, and potentially criminal scale, and I had only just scratched the surface of a conspiracy that went back years. The Ethics Committee's verdict left Sarah disgraced, her career in ruins. Mr. Harrison, stripped of his power, became a cautionary tale. For me, the immediate aftermath was a complex tapestry of relief, vindication, and a profound sense of responsibility. The firm, shaken by the scandal, began its slow, arduous process of rebuilding trust, both internally and with its clients. My promotion to senior architect was swift, and taking over the Sterling Group skyscraper project felt like a poetic justice, a tangible symbol of my reclaimed reputation. I immersed myself in the work, pouring my passion and meticulous attention to detail into every blueprint, every calculation. The support from my colleagues was overwhelming. They had witnessed my quiet struggle, had seen through Sarah's machinations, and now they rallied around me, offering their expertise, their encouragement, their unwavering loyalty. The firm's CEO, a man of integrity and foresight, personally oversaw the implementation of new ethical guidelines and stricter oversight protocols, ensuring that such a betrayal would never happen again. The office, once a place of subtle tension, now hummed with a renewed sense of purpose and collaboration. The personal scars of Sarah's betrayal ran deep, but the professional vindication was a powerful balm. I was shedding the old skin, preparing for a new beginning, a new chapter built on authenticity and integrity. The public exposure was a crucial first step, a necessary act of professional justice. But the true work of rebuilding, of healing, had just begun. And this time, I was building on a foundation of genuine trust, not hidden agendas. Healing, I discovered, was not a destination but a continuous journey. The emotional wounds of betrayal ran deep, but I was determined not to let them define my future. I sought professional help, engaging with a therapist who guided me through the labyrinth of shattered trust and emotional trauma. It was a difficult, often painful process, but essential for true recovery. I reconnected with old friends, those who had stood by me, offering unwavering support without judgment. I rediscovered passions I had long neglected, finding solace in long hikes in the mountains, the quiet contemplation of nature, and the challenge of learning a new language. My work, once a source of immense pressure to prove myself, transformed into a platform for genuine innovation and collaboration. I shared my journey of rebuilding, my struggles, my triumphs, and my colleagues responded with an overwhelming outpouring of empathy and shared experiences. My leadership style evolved, focusing on transparency, mentorship, and fostering a culture of integrity. I hosted internal workshops, not to promote myself, but to create a safe space for discussion, for support, for collective growth. I shared resources for mental health, for ethical decision making, for empowering architects to recognize and report professional misconduct. My pain, once a private burden, had been transformed into a powerful message of resilience, a beacon of hope for countless others within the firm and the industry. I was no longer just an architect. I was a leader, a voice for ethical practice, a testament to the power of truth and the strength of a united professional community. The career sabotage had been a catalyst, forcing me to confront not just Sarah's lies, but the subtle vulnerabilities within the firm. And in doing so, I found a deeper, more authentic version of myself, an architect not just of buildings, but of a better professional future. As I delved deeper into the Sterling Group skyscraper project, meticulously reviewing every detail, every blueprint, every communication log, the unsettling pattern I had glimpsed earlier became glaringly obvious. The subtle alterations in the structural integrity calculations, the ones that would compromise the building's long-term stability, were not isolated incidents. They were part of a systemic pattern, a deliberate design flaw embedded across multiple high-profile projects handled by Sterling & Associates over the past decade. And the common thread? Arthur Vance, the former senior architect, my namesake, who had retired abruptly years ago under mysterious circumstances. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about Sarah's ambition or Mr. Harrison's affair. This was a far grander, more insidious scheme. Arthur Vance, it turned out, hadn't retired. He had been quietly forced out after a series of unexplained structural failures in his previous firm. Failures that were deliberately designed to manifest years after construction, ensuring maximum profit for the contractors involved in the subsequent repairs and renovations. He had brought his criminal methodology to Sterling & Associates, embedding these time-bomb flaws into the very foundations of their most prestigious projects. Sarah and Mr. Harrison, I realized with a sickening lurch, were not just perpetrators of professional misconduct, they were unwitting pawns manipulated by Vance. The affair, the career sabotage, they were brilliant diversions, designed to consume my attention while the true, long-term structural compromises went unnoticed. Vance had been using the firm's reputation, its integrity, as a shield for his own criminal enterprise, ensuring a steady stream of lucrative repair contracts for his silent partners. The depth of his depravity was staggering, far beyond a simple affair or career sabotage. This wasn't just about a lost promotion. It was about a broken law, a calculated conspiracy that had used the very buildings we designed as instruments of long-term fraud, risking lives and reputations for profit. And the true mastermind behind it all, the one pulling the strings, was still out there, hidden in the shadows, profiting from the slow decay of his own creations. Suddenly, every seemingly innocuous detail, every fleeting moment of unease, coalesced into a terrifyingly clear picture. The unexplained delays in my early projects, not Sarah's doing, but a consequence of Vance's embedded flaws, which required subtle adjustments and workarounds. The minor errors in my work that I couldn't account for. They were the ripple effects of his deliberate structural compromises, forcing me to unknowingly compensate for his hidden designs. The Sterling Group's unusual patience with project delays and cost overruns, not just a client's understanding, but a deliberate strategy to allow Vance's time-bomb flaws to mature, ensuring future repair contracts. The subtle mentions of future collaborations and exclusive partnerships in Sarah and Mr. Harrison's exchanges. They weren't just about their affair, they were about securing their place in Vance's long-term scheme, ensuring they benefited from the lucrative repair work that would inevitably follow. The hints I had dismissed as mere red flags of professional rivalry were in fact breadcrumbs leading to a vast criminal enterprise. Vance had used the firm's reputation, its integrity, as a shield for his own criminal enterprise, ensuring a steady stream of lucrative repair contracts for his silent partners. He had played me, Sarah, Mr. Harrison, and the entire firm like puppets on a string, all for the ultimate prize: long-term, systemic fraud. My initial triumph over Sarah felt hollow, replaced by a cold, simmering rage at Vance's audacity. his manipulative genius. He hadn't just taught me how to build, he had taught me how to be destroyed. And he had used his own lessons against me. But now I had the knowledge. I had the true blueprint of his systemic deception. And this time, my retribution would be far more devastating, far more permanent. The game wasn't over. It had just entered a new, far more dangerous phase, one that would expose not just Sarah and Mr. Harrison, but the entire network of corrupt architects and contractors he belonged to. I stood in front of the towering model of the Sterling Group skyscraper, its intricate details a testament to my renewed dedication. The city lights twinkled outside my office window, a stark contrast to the darkness that had just been revealed. The blueprints, now marked with Vance's hidden flaws, felt heavy in my hands. They thought they had won. They thought they had gotten away with it. But they had underestimated me. They had underestimated the power of an architect who refuses to let a single flaw go unnoticed. And they had forgotten one crucial detail. In the world of structures, every weakness, every hidden compromise eventually reveals itself. And some secrets, once unearthed, refuse to stay buried. They fester, they twist, and they will always find their way back to the surface. Because the real game, the one they never saw coming, has only just begun. And this time, there will be no escape. Not for Vance, not for his network, not for anyone involved. The blueprint for their systemic destruction is now complete, and I'm ready to build. But this time, I'm building a case. And Vance, my old mentor, is about to learn that the student has surpassed the master. And the cost of his lesson will be the very foundations he sought to corrupt.